Hey everybody, it's been a while since I posted a video on YouTube, so I thought I'd give an update as to what's happening with this channel, what's happened to the Odyssey Raid Guides channel, and I also thought I'd try and give an insight into sort of my experiences on Star Wars and DC and compare the two. So first of all, the channel. There's now a new YouTube Odyssey channel. The reason is because this channel was under my personal account, whereas the other one is now on a shared account. Um, I'm also no longer leading Odyssey. The reason for that is I had to take a break from the game, and due to work commitments, I just haven't got the time to manage Odyssey. And you know they've got the same leadership team. They've got a new leader in place. It's just a very big league. A lot of time has to go into managing it, and it can take up a lot of time. So I've stopped doing that now. I'm now a member in Odyssey. Um, so then, where does Star Wars come in? Well, I played the beta weekend of the stress test. I'll be entirely honest, I only got to level 10 on the stress test, but I found Star Wars very enjoyable. What I'd like to do is compare the strengths and weaknesses of both. So let's start with DC. DC, since they've gone free to play, they've had a massive surge of players, which is great. Much more PvP, much more leagues, much more raiding, so many more players. Downside to that, the servers have been a bit laggy, but you know you can see Sony are working on that constantly. They will eventually stabilise, obviously, and hopefully the player base will continue to grow. To be honest, the more the better to a certain extent, as long as the servers can cope. The new content that's coming out, although FOS 3 was short, I have played FOS 1, 2, 3 even with a break. FOS 3, it may have been short, but I do think it's a very enjoyable fight. It's quite a creative fight. It's brought a lot of mechanics in that we haven't seen in DC before, where you're using ag control a lot more than other fights. FOS 2, let's give a quick rating of that. You know, I think it's a difficult raid zone, but not that difficult. It's sort of in between. Most people will be able to do that eventually. The last boss is quite interesting and can be a challenge for a lot of people, but once you've got the tactics nailed down, it's not 100% success, and that's what's good about that raid. You don't want a raid that you can get the tactics and nail it every week. You want something to throw you off balance and surprise you, which is a good thing about FOS 2. The only thing is, and there's a lot of complaints, the speed feat is very hard to get. Odyssey recently got that, and they were literally scraping it when they got it. So it has to be a perfect run. Probably worth a lot more feat points than it was, because I believe it's 25 feat points. But when you do achieve that, you know you're doing very well, and it is possible. You just really have to execute a perfect run and get your tactics really tight. So that's DC. You know, I think it has got a positive future. One of the massive advantages it's got is no matter how many players it loses, because it's free to play, players never really quit. Even if they uninstall the game, they can re-download it for free. They can log back in, and they can come back, and that means they'll constantly have players coming back, and hopefully be able to continue to have quite a large player base. General feedback from a lot of the guys who've been in Odyssey for a long time is many of them aren't going to play Star Wars. Most of them are staying around and going to carry on playing DC. The other real strength DC has got is its combat system. Now, it's probably got the best MMO combat system around. The problem is Sony aren't utilising it yet. I hope that they make the combat system more versatile, so that it's not just spamming the same ability over and over again. It'd be nice to see an increase in powers in the power bar, but I don't think that's going to happen. You know, we've all seen WoW with a million power bars. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is just managing 6 cooldowns, and realistically you're probably only using 4 of them most of the time. I don't think it's challenging enough. I don't think it's advanced enough. I think they can make that a bit more interesting. The new class, that was a lot more interesting. Hard light. People have said it's not great. People have said it's great. There's been mixed feedback, but I think it's good to see that they're bringing in other mechanics other than the melee mechanic, which is what most classes are using at the moment. So you're using more powers, etc. So, I mean, in general, you know, I think DC at the moment, it's still got a lot to learn, but I think Sony are learning, and they're learning a lot faster than they did before. And with the new player base, it's made the game much more playable. There's more of a community on there, and it's it has got a strong future. I'll be entirely honest, I don't think it's the best game. I don't think it's the better game out of Star Wars and DC, but they are games in different categories now due to the free-to-play and subscription. Then over to Star Wars. I played that in the stress test weekend. I only got to level 10. I'll be entirely honest with that. But it was very, very good. You could see that BioWare really have spent the time in polishing that game. They've made it so that it's going to be playable and relatively bug-free from release. Not many games do that now, it seems. I assume it costs a damn lot of money to do it, but you can see they've taken that time, and I think that's going to pay off. Now, the downside is the game's quite expensive for an MMO. You know, £45 from some retailers, £40 from others, and £130 for the collector's edition. That will put some players off, I think, but I think it's going to have a big pull anyway. I'd suggest from release it may get 1 or 2 million players at least, maybe more. Sorry, if anyone wants to make comments slating that comment, that's fine. So yeah, I think it's going to have a lot of players to start with, and it's going to have a lot of positive feedback because they really have designed this game well so far. I haven't done any PvP in it, and I haven't done any endgame. I'll be entirely honest with that, and that will make or break Star Wars. If the endgame is poor and the PvP is poor, then everyone will quit. If it's good, which I am pretty certain it will be, just from seeing what I've seen so far, players really will enjoy it. The class system, a lot of people say, oh, there's only 4 classes. Then you have to consider there's 4 classes with 2 advanced classes, so that is 8 classes. And then on top of that, your 2 advanced classes also have 3 talent trees to spec into. I think by the looks of the mechanics of that, you're going to be speccing into one specifically and another one partially. So that means you've got 3 combinations, which then means you go from having 4 to 8 to 24 different combinations of classes per faction, which is, I think that's enough. They've involved CC, they've involved heals, they've involved melee DPS, they've involved range DPS, and they've involved tanks. They've involved all the core mechanics of an MMO, but shrouded them a little bit, and that's good. It's going to make players think. There's no respecking of the advanced classes, what I've heard, so that means that once you pick that, you're not going back. Now, maybe that'll change in the future. It's probably likely that it'll change in the future, but I do think it's good that people are now going to have to think and go, I'm going to play this class, but realistically I can play it 2 or 3 ways. I can play it as a DPS, a healer, or a tank, or a caster DPS. It really has got a lot going for it. The content, as I say, it looks massive. The quests and the way that you have to interact with the quests, for once it's not a game where you go in, oh please just get over with this dialogue so I can click on to the next bit. You've actually, I actually quite enjoyed listening to that, listening to the storyline and making the decision whether my response would be light, dark, or seriously dark. In most cases seriously dark, as we're playing Sith. It's getting your points towards your armour. They've just thought so many things through, and there's so much going on in the game. I think it's got a lot of playability, and it's not going to get boring fast. And equally, because the quests are different, the areas are very different, you'd quite happily level up an alt on that. And I am a terrible fan of alts. I hate them. I've only got thermal on DC. In other games, I've only played one character. I never play alts, but I can see me on Star Wars quite happily leveling another class to max level. And it is very WoW based, Star Wars, I'll give you that. The fact is though, and there's a lot of WoW hate out there, there's a lot of WoW love, WoW has worked, and I think what BioWare have tried to do, they've tried to take the good aspects of WoW, which is a lot of it, and then change it a little bit, and put in a few extra bits, polish it a bit more, and think it through. And I honestly think this is the one game that can maybe take some of the players from WoW, and I don't think it'll kill WoW, I don't think it'll take even 50% of the player base, but I think it will take some of the players, and that's quite interesting. It's good to see because it puts a bit of competition in the market, and it's interesting how for once Star Wars haven't gone for something new, like other MMOs have, and tried to change the mechanic, tried to change the MMO genre like WoW did. They've gone with a working model, and they've seen it work, get loads of players, and executed themselves in their own way. So I've sort of covered both games there. There's one final aspect. People keep sort of getting hooked up on this. They're saying, "Oh, Star Wars is far too static a combat system. I don't want to go back to that." Compared to DC, it is a bit of a static combat system because you've got the click combat on DC, which is great. And as I say, that's a massive strength, and it's got a lot of potential for DC, but they do need to utilise it more. However, Star Wars isn't that static. I didn't see an auto attack in the game, you are still using a lot of abilities. There's more bars, but instead of click combat, you're having to use your hot buttons on your bar, and it's not a case of just cast this global to cooldown, cast this. There's abilities that will be triggered by different events, so such as when you block, you'll be able to press an ability that isn't triggered by the global cooldown. So you are pressing buttons a lot. You're generating certain amounts of rage for different abilities, and getting that right is really going to help. Then on top of that, you've got your companion, so you're going to be controlling that. So yet again, there's even more buttons, and I do not think it's static like a lot of people think. It's again, they've taken something that works and made it a bit better. They've taken out sort of auto attack and changed it so that you've got to think, you've got to hit the buttons, you've got to know what combos you're going to hit. Combined with a great quest storyline, I really think Star Wars is going to thrive and get a lot of players. I don't think it'll kill DC. People have been saying, "Oh, it's going to take." Well, it will take some players from DC, but as I say, DC is free to play. People can return to that, have a look at it whenever they want for nothing, and if it's looking really good, and their friends are back there, there's no reason why they won't subscribe or play for a while on free to play. So both games now I think are in different areas of the market. One's in the free to play market, one's in the pay to play market. Star Wars' real competition now is WoW, and the competition between them. DC has a totally different level of competition. I think it will lose players. I think WoW will lose players, and I think Star Wars is going to gain a lot of players. I think they had something like 40 or 50. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but every server was full on the beta weekend that I saw, and I didn't crash once, and I didn't have any lag whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, if this channel will now become my channel, my plan is to hopefully, if I get some free time, to release some videos of Star Wars. Again, doing raid tactics overviews, and my plan is I'd like to build an elite team in Star Wars. Oh, sorry, I'll probably use that phrase loosely, elite, but a team that is capable of getting through content, and same system as I had in. Hopefully that way we can get some good content onto YouTube for people to watch. My DC videos unfortunately will stop unless loads of people comment and say we want this, we want this. That's fair enough. I may come back and do a video if the demand's there. But yeah, I'd like to thank all the subscribers because there's been a lot of support. We've got over 18,000 views from everybody, and that is a lot for a small game such as DC. It's been nice to see all the positive feedback. There's been a lot of people that don't like what we do, saying it makes the developers make raids harder, but ultimately I think it's been a good thing. And yeah, so please feel free to comment, ask me any questions. I will always try to reply to comments. I think about 90% of the comments made I reply to on this channel. So yeah, if you've got any comments, if you've got any questions, feel free to post them to this video. If you've got any questions about Star Wars, please ask and I will give you feedback. I'll be playing from the pre-release, so within the next week I'm hoping to be on it. And yeah, thank you everybody, and we'll see you soon with the next video. Cheers.